I don't want my stick to sound like one of the basses or something like one of the basses. I love that it's distinctive and unique. Anyone who tours knows this. We need to keep the suitcase under 50 pounds or at 50 pounds. And I have about 45 pounds of, of necessary cables and pedals. Sure. I'm not an expert at the options there are. There are so many options now, and I think that's wonderful. I have two sticks, and finally, maybe 15 years ago, I realized that I need two sticks that are the same, so that if one's in Europe and I have a session to do in New York, I can do it. So mine are both the same, and they have what I call the Chapman stick pickup, essentially the same pickup I always had. I think there are other variations of pickups that are very interesting and worthwhile, but it's the sound of the stick that first attracted me to the bass side. And when I've explored a little bit the option of other sounds, I find that I keep wanting to go back to that. So I have the standard pickup, which covers both sides. Yeah. One thing I'm not in touch with is how other stick players approach and feel about the options of the stick. And as I said, there's so many. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to be able to fine-tune what you want. And that's very important to me in my world. I wouldn't apply it to everybody else, but in my world, I am a bass player. I have a lot of very good basses that I can bring to a recording project and find the right sound. I don't want my stick to sound like one of the basses or something like one of the basses. I love that it's distinctive and unique. And when I was mentioning listen to the piece and envision what I could do on the stick, it's a very useful tool for me, specifically because it's unique and different sounding. Yeah. So the tuning, I think there's a name for it, but it seems pretty standard to me. The bass side has a low C and goes up in fifths. The guitar side, I've been told that I tune at a half step different than a lot of people. The low string is a C, and it goes up in fourths. So I think I'm embarrassed that I don't know the name of that kind of tuning, because to me it just makes sense. But I don't remember how it was before, 15 years ago before I changed it. So essentially, to me, the way I'm behind the stick and thinking about the low string, both of the low strings are C. And in my music with Stickman and with King Crimson, I do a lot of doubling of a bass line on the low strings, and it's very easy. It's just a bar across. I could do it with one finger and get a kind of a typical heavy metal sound of guitar and bass together. And so that's why, if they were half a tone apart, I could still do it, but I couldn't phrase the way I want to. I can go get the stick and show you, but I think I don't have the rails. I think they're not completely rounded the way they used to be, but they're not sharp. Okay. I'm embarrassed that I'm a little ignorant of even what I have. I know that, considering that I have come up with some innovations on bass through the years, considering that, I'm surprisingly slow to change. If I like the way an instrument feels or sounds, I don't really want to change it. So in many ways, I'm playing the stick that's very similar to the way it was when I first started. I haven't tried that. No? You know what? The best time and place for me to try those is when I'm in Los Angeles and can visit Emmett, and I'm not in Los Angeles much, and the last few times I didn't even have time to do anything. That often happens when you're on tour doing one-nighters. You can't free up an afternoon, even though it's kind of important. Well, I've always compressed the bass side of the stick since the day I got it, I think. I'm hard-pressed to remember why. I just did what in the old days was an MXR compressor. It sounded better, and I never changed that. I have changed compressors through the years, but essentially I'm still using what to me, what I describe as the sound of a stomp box compressor. In other words, pretty extreme. It's not as subtle or versatile as a rack-mounted one. You can get better compressors, but I don't want that sound. I want the squash. So that's very simple. I use volume. I need to have a volume pedal on both the top and the bottom side. And when I'm busy playing heavy, I've been told by other players that I kind of bang pretty hard on the notes. So consequently, I need to pull the volume up on the other side. Otherwise, you get crosstalk of banging on the neck. I don't like that sound at all, especially live. In a recording, of course, it can be ducked and fixed. So a couple of volume pedals. Then at various times, I'll want a fuzz tone on both sides and echoes and kind of standard stuff. I think for the last 3 or 4 years, I forget how many years, but I had been searching very hard for the right amp solution for the top side, the guitar side. Being a bass player, I think I know all about how to get a bass sound. Being not a guitar player, entering the world of guitar sounds was an adventure for me. And finally, I got the Kemper amp profiler, and it really solved my problem. So I'm very happy with that. For those who don't know it, the Kemper, it has sounds of a lot of popular amps. I don't know what you call them, models, I guess, of them, but it's called a profiler because you can take it home and model your own amp, which they call profiling it. So I went through maybe the 12 good guitar amps that I bought through the years, and I embedded the sounds of those. So that's very useful for me live. I don't think I would want to tour anymore without that tool. Because it's small, it's that big, and essentially it's in the Stickman show, I have the sound of 10 or 12 guitar amps with that. That's handy. Other equipment, octave pedal sometime on the bass side, kind of standard stuff. It varies with each tour and each band. A big factor in touring is how much equipment you can take. If I tour with Peter Gabriel at King Crimson, I can have the biggest, really, it's that big, the floor pedal, and it has 12 pedals on it, and I have a technician to fix up more, and I have a synth here. Great. With Stickman, if it's on tour in a van, I have to make it stuff that I can carry, but I have room for quite a bit in the van. But if there are any flights, then weight becomes a factor. So on this very trip to Japan, I had to leave my favorite fuzz tone at home and take a very lightweight one. I had to leave 2 or 3 effects that I use once per show, leave them at home because there isn't weight for them. Anyone who tours knows this. We need to keep the suitcase under 50 pounds or at 50 pounds. And I have about 45 pounds of necessary cables and pedals. And so there's not much leeway. I have wonderful volume pedals. Just the volume pedal, the really good ones are very heavy metallic things. I have cheap plastic ones that don't sound good, and they get a little noisy, but that's what I bring on the road. So it varies with the band, and it varies with the tour. Sometimes I like it. Sometimes I use that, and sometimes I use it in recording. But for me, unlike other players, if I'm playing a heavy fuzz part on the top side, I'm probably not playing the bass side, and I'll pull the volume up. If I'm doing the thing I mentioned where I'm playing a metal line down low on the bass side, it's crosstalk both ways, but I like the sound of it. And if I'm recording that, I don't know how deep to go into recording techniques, but if I'm making a record, I really want it to be pristine. So even though those parts are in unison and I play them at the same time, I'm going to record them separately so that there is no crosstalk, so that the mixing engineer can take one side of that and EQ it differently than the other and not affect the other. So I'll actually go through the trouble of playing the bass note with the crosstalk onto the top side, which I'm not playing, and then I'll play the top side with the crosstalk onto. I'm not saying I'm the best in the world at that, but we try when we're recording to really get the sound the most adjustable that it can be for the recording engineers who really know what they need and to get the best sound in the end product. Live is a whole different thing. I play both sides at the same time.